Hey adventurers, so today is going to be my review for The Return of the King by J.R.R. Tolkien. This is one that I've been preparing for and I've been leading up to for a while now because I think I did a review of The Hobbit this year. I think I did, almost positive that I did, and I know I did a review for the Fellowship of the Ring and the Two Towers, and so now we're on to The Return of the King, which is the last book, the last part, I should say, of The Lord of the Rings, and really the last of Tolkien's major works that he published. He published quite a few other things, and Christopher Tolkien, his son, and since Christopher has also died now, the Tolkien estate has continued to publish things after that, the Silmarillion being the other major one. But Return of the King is the next one that I will be talking about, and I'm excited for this. So, Return of the King by J.R.R. Tolkien. It's an epic fantasy, it's a high fantasy, it's a quest fantasy. It's kind of the establisher of many of these tropes, many of these subgenres. So much of what fantasy has become is due to Tolkien and the Lord of the Rings. Before I get into my review though, here I'd just quickly like to say, if you're liking what you're seeing from an Erudite adventure, we'd really appreciate it if you would like, comment, and subscribe. Alright, so The Return of the King is the third and final part of The Lord of the Rings. This has long been the part that I personally consider to be my favorite of the book. I don't tend to have favorites, but seeing as The Lord of the Rings, I consider one book, the part of that book that I like the most is The Return of the King, this third part. But even with that, I fully admit that I could not love this book as much as I do without that which was set up in the Fellowship of the Ring and the Two Towers. Without those first two parts, this book would not exist in the way that it does, and it would not be nearly as impactful. This book maintains the split perspective for most of the book that I've talked about this in my review of the Two Towers, which I will have linked. So it maintains this split perspective for most of the book. The first half again following Aragorn, Legolas, and Gimli, but also Merry and the Rohirrim, and then Gandalf and Pippin is the third perspective that is followed in this first half of the book. The second half of the book again follows Frodo and Sam. So once again, the events of the first half are much more grand and epic in scale. There are massive battles and events that change the course of the narrative drastically. The passing of the Grey Company, the Battle of Pelennor Fields, the Ride of the Rohirrim, all the events, as well as all the events that take place within the city of Minas Tirith itself. Those including what happens with Denethor and Faramir, as well as Pippin, or Aragorn even, or the Houses of Healing. All this stuff is very, very important to this great story that's being told. But then we go forward and head towards the Battle of the Black Gate, where we end with a fade to black and a cliffhanger. Switch to the second half of this book, which follows Frodo and Sam. Now we are following Sam in the aftermath of the battle with Shelob and the orcs taking the body of Frodo to the tower, and then Sam attempting to break into the tower. But the grandness of that first half of the book again comes to a screeching halt, and we are forced to struggle through each moment with Frodo and Sam. It becomes a very personal story of these two characters as they drag themselves across Mordor in one last desperate attempt. They both now know that there is no return for them. All they can hope for is success in their quest. The endings of The Lord of the Rings are so powerful to me. We see failure, we see fading, we see changes that cannot be repaired. We see the effects of war even on places that were not directly involved. We see the great loss that comes with the War of the Ring, but we also see rebirth. We also see a new and rising glory. We see the happiness and contentment even as we leave this world one last time. This book is written so incredibly beautifully. There is a reason why the Ride of the Rohirrim is so widely praised. It is some of the most incredibly captivating writing ever. But there are so many moments like this, not the way that it's that description where I really don't want to just search it out and find it. Maybe I should. I know I mentioned it when I was reading through this chapter, doing the big read through with David Wiley and Steve Donahue. Let's see. So where is this? Suddenly the king cried to Snowmane, and the horse sprang away. Behind him his banner blew in the wind, white horse upon a field of green. but he outpaced it. After him thundered the knights of his house, but he was ever before them. Eomer rode there, the white horsetail on his helm floating in his speed, and the front of the first Eored roared like a breaker foaming to the shore. But Theoden could not be overtaken. Fey he seemed, or the battle fury of his fathers ran like new fire in his veins, and he was borne up on Snowmane like a god of old, even as Orome the Great in the battle of the Valar when the world was young. His golden shield was uncovered, and lo, it shone like an image of the sun, and the grass flamed into green about the white feet of his steed, for morning came, morning and a wind from the sea, and darkness was removed, and the hosts of Mordor wailed, and terror took them, and they fled, and died, and the hoofs of wrath rode over them. And then all the host of Rohan burst into song, and they sang as they slew, for the joy of battle was on them, and the sound of their singing, that was fair and terrible, came even to the city. And just that passage, the power of that passage alone is incredible. But it's not only, that type of writing is not only found in that one passage, it's found all throughout this book. I've talked about it before, how every location, every moment, Tolkien changes his writing to fit the scene and immerse you all the more. You feel the dryness, the heat, and the oppressive darkness and malice of Mordor. You see the defilement of that which was once beautiful. There's not a moment that you feel pulled from this world until at last you go home. As ever, Andy Serkis's performance for the audiobook is just incredible. It's beyond incredible. And the care and attention to detail that he gives just serve to make it all the more immersive. I really don't have a lot more to say about this because I've talked extensively about these books, and I know that in the future I'll continue to talk about them because they're so important to me, and every time I reread them, they're just the best books that I've ever read, continually, every time. Thank you guys for watching an Erudite Adventure. We post videos every Monday and Thursday, and our social media is linked in the description down below. We'll see you guys again soon. Stay warm.